Okay, the subject that we're talking about is up at the top, and it said Ba'arvis Nasa Zivug Yaakov Leah Mechachaza Lamala. Okay, and there's a whole lot of it's a little bit contradictory what this piece says. We're looking at number Lamed Daled at the bottom. Number Lamed Daled says Ulefi should be Yos Leah Ba'achre Zer Anpen, since Leah is on the back of Zer Anpen. Zer Anpen. He Adechaza Shalom Bilvad, she only reaches to the Chaza. She says, what does this mean? We had a big hiddush about the size of Leah that we, I think, saw here the first time. The fish should be Hiyos Leah Ba'achre Zer Anpen. Okay, we read that. Asher Ragle Leah, even though we know that the legs of Leah, Magian ad so shlish em soy to Tiferes, they reach down into the middle third, which is, he wants to say that's the Tibor. Because Makom Omer Kan Shemigian Rak Adachaza Shuhu Dekila Shlish em soy, which is the beginning of the middle shlish, which is the Chaza. Kevin Shebishlish em soy to Tiferes Meluvashem Ragle Leah, so that's where you have that's where the halbasha of the feet of Leah, Toch Rachel, Ve'enam Regilim, Ve'enam Begilu, they're not, you can't see them. I guess meaning that they're not operant because they're inside of Rachel. V'alkein Enam Olim B'Shem, so therefore that you don't count that. Number Lamed Hey rather, Ba'achat Tefilas Arvis, he says, Chosros Leah l'makoma ach ba'ach kavat achilo im zer anpen. So he has a kasha on this. So the kasha on this is the Hikshuch and Mefarshim, and he says you can see that the Divrei Shalom and the Shevat Sasam, the halacha mechanoida, but it's known like this: the Leah omedes im zer anpen panim ba'ach. She's facing the back of his head. Behind a pnei Leah ba'achre zer anpen, that the face of Zerah is in the back. Her face is to the back of his head. V'im came ech omer, but here it says kan kashechozeres Leah the mokoma. What's her place? Shemedes ad ba'ach ach ba'ach im zer anpen. So the Shemin Soso, so that's a stira. So therefore, what it is Shemin Soso answers this, and he says. He said, "Rachein yesh kan shinui b'seder ha'mamidah ha'rogel d'Leah." So this is a change. So the kol chayom omedes Leah panei ba'achem zer anpen ulam be'ez ha'dormita. So we said, but there's a difference at the time of the dormita. Sheneknasim ha'mochin, the parts of the nook where the mochin go directly into the parts of the nook. Hakolum Leah v'rochol k'mavur l'kamon, as we're going to explain that they actually become one. So he said, in the Amadis az Leah im zer anpen ach ba'ach. V'hu machmir shena'as Leah v'rachel, the parts of Echad. So that Leah takes on the qualities of Rachel. So he said, v'al kain overes Leah la'amud ka'amidas Rachel l'chamedes ach ba'ach. V'al pi zecha memuvin mata metzina v'seba kavanas v'nesira. Shanasira and Asa im Partsufi, Rachel, and Leah. For the Chorach of Bekasha, Halacha Nasira Shayechas Raka Asher Partsufim Omdim Ad Ba'ach Ba'ach. Over Kefach of Shaleh Medibana Ba'ach, im Zer Anpen, im came Lo Shaykh Lasos Nasira in Leah. Leah's already turned around. Ba'al Pisa Ba'alvich Mavur Ba'Miyushav Mavur HaMiyushav, he said the Be'esha Anai the Iba Be'ima Mochin Shabahem Neknasim El Partsufi Leah V'Rachel Shena'as the parts of Echad. At that point they become one parts of Omedes Leah Gam Leah Omedes Ata Gam Leah Ach Ba'ach B'Mela Shafir Shaykh La'asos the Siro Im Leah. So Be'inyan and the seer of the Leah, he says you have to go later on or look on the Torah's Chacham, he said. So he says in the end of that little thing here, let me, 1 second. He says, and the men V'chuva Khan B'Shem and Sason, etc., going on like that. Now let me see where Lamed Vav is. Lamed Vav and Lamed Vav was back in the we go through these a little bit. And Lamed Vav was back, where is that? So let's read the top of the, or we could read it in number Mem Gimel. Number Mem Gimel. Here it is. Number Mem Gimel on the next page. Number Mem Gimel says, V'acha tefilas arvis, choseres Leah le'makomo, ach ba'ach gevat achilachem zer anpen. That was our quote. So he said, V'la'ach shena'asa chazevet de Yaakov alecha b'vnei zer anpen b'tefilas arvis, choseres Leah v'la'amo b'makomo, b'makomo rishon ma'ach zer anpen b'chachazel l'malav ne'emedes ach ba'ach im zer anpen. We went through like that. Now that was the, so there was a Lamed Vav on this. It's on the next page. The next page went to say, Lamed Vav, he says, Kavat Achila, like they were originally. What's this all about? So he says, Allaham Mavur B'dibra HaKodim, Akati Lo Ansi Shafer Omer Kavat Achila, so it's not really said that's their first position. Because of the first position, she was not ach to ach. So therefore he has a kasha about why he said l'chatchila or b'lechila. So he said Pirush and Sason, and he answers like this: Hakavanot shechuzeres l'kamosh shechoyse be'es nesira b'tebes ba'ava. So it refers to that when you say the word ba'ava. What happens is a turn there. The birchas ava that we find in birchas avos. The Arvis. Shechein Chazivim, the Arvis, Gam Hu Na'asa Yaakov and Leah, also takes place with Yaakov and Leah. Because the Chein Na'asis Bechem Nesirim, before that they had to have been in Nesirim. That's the time he's talking about when he uses the word Kavat Achila. So V'az B'shas HaNesira Omedes Leah Ach Ba'ach Im Zer Anpen, so that's a fact that he wants to bring out. There's one more, his number Lamed Zion. Lamed Zion at the top. Well, look, we just read it down here. The statement was, the Fisha Rochel Omedazim Zer Anpen Ach Ba'ach Gam Be'ez Tefilas Arvis, even at that time. He says, Ki Hazivug Lo Choyz Rak Yaakov B'Leah Keniska. The Zivug is only between Yaakov and Leah. Al af the yeshnach begam came zivug the kelim gitzoni the Yaakov Leah. So let's Yaakov Rachel. Remember that this is interesting to me. I don't think there's a yichud that's taking place in the kitzonius of the he's taking the kitzonim of the original yichud that took place with Yaakov and Rachel from the morning. This brings you to the kitzonius of it, kitzonim, kelim kitzonim. But here we're not talking about the kelim kitzonim. That had to do with Rachel and Yaakov. This is going to be for V'sham and Zevug Barachel b'tefilas arvis. So over there, they're not talking about that yichud there because that's the yichud, the kelim penimim, is not taking place here with Rachel, taking place with Leah. So this, in other words, it's the beginning of the yichud that's taking place with Leah at the nighttime. Now let's go back to the body of this and go to number Mem Hey. So the blurb at the top says on Be'ez Dormita Neknasim Mochin B'Leah at the time of the Dormita. We mentioned this already. And so we're on number Mem Hey, and we'll read it. V'hine acher shenaflo v'lo v'sheino v'dardemo v'gevarn is bar and yonan la'el shu sha'anai de'ima ima mochin de'zer anpen asher b'sochem v'stalkim de'zer anpen. They all leave zer anpen. V'niknasa b'soch nukva de'zer anpen, and they enter into the nukva of zer anpen. V'hi Leah, which is Leah. And understand this. So that you get over there. So he said, what's he saying? So she know that at Arvis, so she's in the back of Zer Anpen. Maskil, he said, the Asos in the Dormita starts. V'nofel shina l'zer anpin, zer anpin falls asleep. The shana mistalke bepenach amamochim in levushechem she'em anai da abba ve'ima. V'neknasim el tocha nuk kedei livnoisel. V'lamdein da Rav kan. Shechanuk hazu sheba neknasim amokim ge'ez is Leah, not Rachel. The Kamon Yuvurim she'ein zecher bepartzufi Leah belvad. If parts of Leah, it's not just the parts of Leah. Ela hischavru shnei partzufin Leah v'Rachel. Now they come together at the time of the Nesira. Other shenikroim shnechem b'shem Leah, but they're both called by the name Leah. The Yavur, so he's going to explain that. Yavur, he's going to explain that as we go on. Now, let me see. We did number Lamed Ches. We did it. Okay, so let's go on to keep going. And it says number Mem Vav. Number Mem Vav. So Tamhu Lefi Sharamamochin Niknasa Me'eda the Tata. So the reason why is because of the way the entrance of the Mochin from up above is coming from the top to the bottom, but the Chida Pogim Beleah, the Niknasim Ba, and they enter into Leah. It's Pashas a Mochin Na'asach Lamata. It goes from the top to the bottom, so it has to come whereas Leah is on the top. Made a nimsek shechanai the ima mochim shebesocho mochim the hispashit besoch parts of the nook. They come into the mispashit, into the parts of the nook, or medas me'achre zer anpen, which is standing in the back of zer anpen. Pokim heim the chiluk, the parts of Leah, of course, or medas me'al rochel. Mispashit bought the chiluk, and it spreads into her to begin with. We'll go on. Amnam daki lupa mem kasher hamochin niknas in the hagdil is rachel. So sometimes says that when the mochin enter into in to grow rachel, oz misareves and mischaverish techem yachad rachel v'leah. So the shefa is going towards rachel. They said there something like that, but they have to hit Leah first. So let's go over here. There's Ka'esi says, Na'asa idin mechudash. Shnecha partzufim Leah v'Rachel mischavrim yachtav. Then Na'asa the parts of Echad, and they become one part of. Because Rishu Yevurah v'Mochem niknasach and mispashti the parts of Zeh Shal Hanuk, a kol of Shtei partzufim, which is now Leah and Rachel. Number Memches, as long as we're reading. So he says, V'Chadafisha Shehine, Orach Nai the Imachim Aruchos Kashir Orach the whole Zer Anpin Kula. So the Nai of Ima is going to go into the entire Zer Anpin. Asher Orcho Orach Leah Varachel, that the length of Zer Anpin is actually the length of the two female aspects, Leah and Rachel. Him came, but he kones anahi tocha nukva. So therefore, when it comes into the nukva, tzrichim his pasha b'shtei in the keva. So therefore, these mochin that are contained in the nai of ima are going to have to go through both of them, Leah v'Rachel, lehi yosef mislavshin b'sochim, so that the mochin would be mislavish inside of them. As he explains, he says ki hanukva. Let me see if I get this. Ki nukva achas lo tispok l'chal bisham, which is not sufficient because we got to go up through both of them. Hatam asher mischavrim shnei partzufi Leah v'Rachel v'na'asa parts of echad hu lefi shir kumas nai the ima tevuna, which is tevuna, because shir kumas call orach zer anpen. Got to go through all the whole thing. And b'meila gam kashir orech Leah v'Rachel b'yachad v'kevin shekain. Since that's the case, kasher niknasim mispashte banara the ibach b'chem amochim shebechem b'soch anuk, was with the mochim go into look be'ezed dormita. He after shehem yispashto rak b'Leah or rak b'Rachel. So you can't have just that. Shechein call achad b'chem l'chud. Lo tasbik the halbish as called hanachin the devuna, so by themselves they're not enough to be able to surround this nai devuna that's coming in. V'lechein mispashtim nai the devuna v'Leah v'Rachel shnechem yachad. So that's the situation that they're in at that point. Let's read a little bit more. Number Mem Tes. Number Mem Tes says v'az kevin shanai the imachem b'bechina achad bilvad the rucha. So that what's happening is that it's all one long that's a section, this nai of Tavuna. He came bislavshem b'toch Leah. So therefore, once they become mislavish inside of Leah v'Rachel, muchrachu sheyischavru shnechem v'yisarvu v'yasa parts of echad, and they have to become one part of it at this point because they have one element that's feeding both of them. Bilvad. So he says parts of echad bilvad guvocha kuma, which has the whole length that would be accommodating the nai of Ima. Kevishin is pashted mislabshim anai the ima toch shnei anakelas Leah v'Rachel, since they spread like that. He said muchrachu, so it has to be then shel Leah v'Rachel ya'as parts of echad the kevishin anai the ima he mispashted his pashtus achas. So he says there's only one nai, and that's one spread that's going to go. So therefore, it has to accommodate them. So he says, "Ritzorshi is pasha parts of echad that have to go into one part of the parts of so the local parts of yeshna his pashtus achas below naas his pashtus achas b'shnei partzufim." There is one more, and we might as well do it, and then we'll come back and see what we could do with the shefa. There's a couple of shefas there we could do. So al derek mashin is bar b'tzlenda be'inyan his chavrus bina im tavuna, so that sometimes that you have when they come together and make one element. Shenaasa shtechem parts of echad ba'ayin sham. So look over there. Inyan zeh b'shnei partzufim Leah v'Rachel his chavrim and asa parts of echad. V'tzana dugma zeh parts of bina ima iloh v'tavuna. Sheyeshnam zamanim shemischab partzufi bina v'tavuna v'naasa parts of echad. It just really basically said the same idea. So over here we got to number Lamed Tes. Lamed Tes, going backwards to the previous page. And okay, so we'll look at number Lamed Tes. Number Lamed Tes says, Amnam da ilipamim kasher hamochin niknas in the hagdil es Rachel, oz misarvos umischavros shtechem yachad Rachel v'Leah. So the goal is to get to Rachel according to this, just the language. Yesh the ayin b'masha kasav kan the pamim. It says, what does it pamim mean? It the mashba the chayrechav sheyesh pamim sheniknas anachin the ibach b'Hakavanot. We call makom ein Leah v'Rachel naasim parts of echad. But there's sometimes, since it says it's like that, makes it sound like it's a time when it's not like that. When is this? V'shem tevis the pamim kor adalahalon. So he says that sometimes, when he says the word sometimes, maybe it doesn't mean sometimes it goes into both of them and they combine, sometimes they don't. That's not what he means. Pamim kor adalahalon, which is what's later on. Shalapamim shtei partzufi eluk nikroyim Leah. Sometimes the two partzufim, when they're together, are called in the name of Leah. What is that? Be'esha Rachel misha'elas kalechel the Leah. We're going to get into that little piece later. He's going to come into that next year. The pamim nikroyim Rachel. Sometimes though they're called not Rachel. Kasher Leah sho'elas kalechel Rachel. So they lend and they borrow back between them. What the meaning of that is not clear yet. So he says, "U'b'ofen acher yesh lefarish kavanasa shabbat lomer." That's coming to say shalot tomid Leah v'Rachel hem shtei partzufim nifradim. So it's not that they're all. So it wants to come and tell us that they're not always two separate parts. If in rock pamim shenaasa Leah v'Rachel parts of echad, but sometimes, in fact, they make into one parts of. Fukasha niknasim anai the ima. When is that? When the night of ima comes in, Elanot. Okay, this is the last one, I think. So this is number mem. Number mem says Gashir or orech zer anpin kula. He says asher orcho orech Leah v'Rachel. So he wants to be mapakbek about this a little bit. Masha the mashbekan. The parts of Leah Maskil Machakeser is their anpin of the chazer, because that's what he said. He says they're the same length as their anpin. The Chora Metzion B'Shar Mekomos, but we found every place else. Parts of Leah Maskil Machadas is their anpin, the neck of their anpin, the low Mekesro. Kavar Hiksha the Kane, the Marchel, I had the same problem, is the same question. He's not answering it, we're just pointing it out. You and Sham Govi Sham to get over there and look at it there. So that's going to be the shear on this part. And so I'm going to mark it and wrap it up. Let's see. Here we go.